What is up, iSURFTRIBE? We are in the shaping room again with Andy, and today he's going to give us a rundown on bottom contours, because I personally think bottom contours are one of those things that are overlooked, and especially for beginner intermediates. A lot of times you don't know what's happening because you can't see it. You can see the outline of surfboard, you can see the tail shape, and you can see the rocker, but the bottom contour, a lot of times,
subtle.
No idea what's going on.
And it's complicated. There's complexities to it. You know?
So yeah, run us through. What are we starting at with?
Well, I'm going to show a blank first, because whenever you buy these blanks to start shaping a board, they come flat, or sometimes even with a little bit of what we call V's. You know, what's good is, I think if you're a surfer, you should probably have some kind of straight edge, because this is the only way you can really check the subtleties in your bottom contour. So it's nice to have a...
So even if you're going to buy a surfboard and you go into a surf shop, you bring a straight edge with you.
Edge. Or a stick that's really flat, you know, it doesn't bend out.
Levels
right?
are cheap, man.
Yeah, you don't need it as wide. But see, that's the thing, when you start sticking it on the boards and seeing, you hold up the board, and see the blanks actually come with like a little bit of V, and V is when it's like actually tapers side to side. See, there's a subtle V there. As you come down, you can see it's rocking. It's rocking. So it's what you call, it's like V bottom, starts with slight V. It's almost flat, but yeah, so you got a little V. So when I cut this board out, this is the next shape I'm doing. It's already cut out, I've already done the outline. So the next stage in the shaping is actually starting to do the bottom contours and the rocker. So you have to plan that all out. You know, I have this rocker bar here that shows me I can measure my rocker. We could get into that too. But basically the first thing I start on is scooping out concave. And concave is basically, you know, you're scooping out the foam in the middle. Because there's two rockers in a board, right?
For people that don't know what concave is, which believe me, there probably is a few, it's like that dip, that scoop, right?
I think about like a skateboard deck. Any skateboard, they actually have a concave deck, right? It goes scooping down. And there are boards too, like retro boards that are actually V everywhere. You have a V bottom. But you know, most high performance boards and most average boards these days they all have concave, and you get a benefit from having the concave through it because it creates lift in the board. You know, because really, like most of the boards have a lot of curve in them, the rocker curve, there's a lot of curve. And what you're doing by scooping out the foam and making concave is it's helping the water rush through quicker. So you have two rockers in a surfboard. You have your rail rocker, which has more curve than your center line rocker, because when you make concave, you scoop all the foam out through the board, and we'll go in more to like how the configuration is. But what it does is the water comes onto the board and rushes through the bottom of the board quicker and creates lift for the board and helps the water have less resistance. It goes through the board. So if you shape the rocker and just let the bottom flat like this, the water can't go through as fast, and it bogs a little.
So it would work, but it would be kind of boggy.
Yeah, it's going to plow a little bit. I mean, it would still work, but the more concave, not the more concave, but having concave makes the board go faster. It creates some lift.
But not too much.
But not too much, because sometimes you can have maybe too much concave in the wrong spot of the board, and it might lift in the nose. You don't want that, you know? And then if you have a lot of concave back here and not much up here, the tail can sometimes kind of drift on you or lift, you know. You want to balance in the concave as well.
Hear all that rain? It's getting loud.
So,
I think we're okay.
Generally, the deepest part of the concave is underneath your feet. So if you're standing, you're usually standing here and here on a board. It's like the motor, the engine of your board is in between your feet. So you want the water rushing the quickest through there. So that's why the deepest part of the concave is usually right there. Now, so if I take a finished board, if I was showing this board in the last video, this is one of my personal boards here, and I generally like kind of a lot of concave, although I've gone a little less over time. So to have a balanced concave, let's say, you have it, if we stick the straight edge on here, it's nice to hold.
Let me come around the side, and then they can see it.
So usually with the straight edge, it helps to tilt it. You notice how you can see more like that? Maybe
yeah, you can see the gap. Yeah.
So usually you hold a straight edge like that. And you can see there's concave going into the entry. And then it slowly gets deeper. See that? You can definitely see deeper concave there. And then here you get the engine of the board. What they say the engine or the motor of the board is in between your feet. So you got the deepest part right here. And then as you come down to the fins, it starts getting shallower here. And then usually
come around the back.
See, we hold it up. You can see like, okay, so the deepest is here, and then it's still pretty deep between the fins.
Totally see that gap, yeah.
Yeah, and then it comes down, and then it goes.
Is this double concave or?
Yeah, and it's funny because a double concave, there's a misconception. You think that it's going to be double, like this should be touching the straight edge, but you actually start with a single, and then you get the depth you want, and then you create a double, which is like a lift. This is reasonable more. So if you run your hands, it's also good in surfboards to run your hands. So you're checking the straight edge to see your contours, but you also want to run your hands as the water flow goes. So cross this way, this way.
So double concave versus a single?
Single concave, okay, what happens with double is it helps create a little release. So you got to think of the water flow. The water's flowing usually across this way, because you're hardly ever just going straight surfing.
You're always edging, edge to edge.
You're always going trim, so the water's coming this way and that way constantly. So you think about water flow, and with this little rise in the double concave, it creates a little break in the water and it helps the tail release. So for high performance surfing, it's mostly for high performance surfing, when you come into a top turn, you want the tail to slide just a little bit, just have that little release.
Is there any reason why you would rather have single over double?
Yeah, usually for like say more powerful waves or fast waves, you almost don't want that bump in there because it can create too much release and slide out. So you want to clean, you want the water to really flow through there and grab. Double concave usually for more high performance surfing, head high and below, because you want that little release in the tail so it breaks the water up a little bit and channels it too. But like for high speed situations, and especially narrower tails, you just want that water to flow through. You don't want it to break off of there. You know, it's going to create too much. It's going to break off too much and maybe even create a little cavitation.
So we have tail rocker, nose rocker, board rocker. We have concave, double, single. How far the concave goes, all the way to the nose, whether you're going double or single.
Yeah, a lot of shapers. You like to have it like pretty much almost flat at the nose right here, and then it starts in right about here. And I measure all my depths. I got my check spots, and usually it's about like 3/16 or a 1/4 inch here, and then definitely a 1/4 inch here, sometimes more. And you know, so I measure my concaves to make sure that I'm getting the accuracy.
So let's talk about how you can get it wrong and it can actually ruin a surfboard, because I feel like bigger guys will run into this more than lighter guys because we have more push on the board. We're pushing the water into the wave more.
Yeah.
If you're lighter, I think you can get away with things that are off because you're just not pushing down as hard.
Well, it's also you're losing foam. The more foam you take out of the board with concave, you're losing some flotations. I think for bigger guys too. I think the more concave, the more foam is scooped out of there, you're losing some flotation.
So I found on a couple of my boards that I could not figure out why they surfed so horrible. And the shape looked fine, the tail, everything. And then I finally figured that I thought that maybe there was too much rocker and concave, but I couldn't tell. But I remember it had a ton of concave where my front foot went. You could feel it all the way to the nose. You could feel the double concave like all the way up to here. And
that's what I was talking about just now.
Yeah.
Like a disproportion in it. So you wanted to have it flow just right.
Yeah.
Because if you got too much up here and then it's kind of subtle back there, it's creating a plowing effect. Because the water rushes in and then it's getting kind of caught up where it has to, where it goes into like a shallow concave. So you definitely have to have the proportions right, and that's why it's good to start studying boards and see what that contour is and make sure there's no or breaks. You don't want any breaks in any part of the board.
do you think a lot of shapers are kind of overdoing it? Overdoing the concave and the tail rocker? Because I feel like a lot of shapers are, you hear so much about, oh, tail rocker or a concave.
They're trying to set themselves apart by
I feel like, sometimes it's the too much.
Yeah, and what happens is it might work. What happens then is you're not finding the happy medium, the balance. It might work really good in some situation, and then it's not going to work hardly at all in another situation. So I find like over time, I found finding that happy medium. First, the balance, making sure you're doing it proportion right, but not overdoing it. So because if you overdo it, it's going to work good in some conditions and not in others. So really, like, it's finding the happy medium so you can get a board to work in all around conditions.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to achieve with my board making, is finding in every aspect of the board, finding the happy medium so that it can work in a wide range of conditions. You know.
And of course, depending on the surfer and their level, you're going to change.
Yeah,
the amount that you'll put into
even their body types, like body type, their weight, what their stance is. A lot of times you have to see. You got to ask them if you haven't seen their surfing. You got to say if you have a wide stance, if you have a narrow stance, because then you'd be able to decide like how wide, where the wide point of the board is, or where you want the concaves deeper. There's a lot to take into consideration. boards are complex, you know, there's so many elements to it, so that's why it's like hard to find.
You know what would be cool is if a shaper, like, kind of like a doctor, had information on you. You know, like,
I am a doctor, I'm like a board
but you know what I'm
doctor.
saying? Like, let's say that you have like 10 guys or 15 guys or 20 or 50 guys that you shape for. Wouldn't that be cool if you had a computer system where you could like review and go back and you see like a couple videos of them surfing, and then and you could see like you know, like that kind of information, because everybody's so different.
Yeah,
you
luckily, down here in Costa Rica, since I get to surf with most of my clients, it's a benefit because I really do pinpoint like, okay,
you know how
need
they
this,
surf and
need
everything.
that. Also the fin configuration, because where these fins are aiming is also gonna you also have to take into consideration what kind of surfer they are. Are they doing sharp turns, or are they like a lot of speed down the line to do airs? So how these fins, where they're placed and where they're angled to the nose, that's probably one of the most overlooked aspects of a board is fin placement, and you know, like angles of the fins. There's so much going on.
Let's talk about the edges a little bit.
Yeah.
So
well,
some surfboards have really sharp edges all the way up, and some are rounded. Like,
well, every surfboard you want to feel down here where the fins start going back. You want to feel really sharp edges. If you don't feel a sharp edge when you do this, then it wasn't a well-made board. It was like it's sander. Maybe the sander wasn't very experienced.
so it's sharp, 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 and then it starts to round off
Because you're
about
pushing
here.
it. This is almost like a snowboard or skis where you're pushing off those edges and you really grab water. And also water releases off a mini surface faster off a sharp edge. So if it's rounded, it wants to grab and it slows you down. That's why up here you want the rails really soft. Generally, you want it really soft because you want that water to grab the shape. And then when it comes off the end, you want it to like just come right off. And you actually, the boards are faster having a sharp edge. So back here, you want it almost as sharp enough to pretty much cut a tomato. You know, slice a tomato with that. You know, it's hard too. The sander, it's the sander, the glasser, and the sander's job to get this just right.
This rain is getting super loud.
Yeah.
So
Maybe we'll take a break.
Yeah, let's take a little break. All right, so what do we have here?
Okay, so this is a board I just shaped, or it's almost shaped. It's not quite finished. But I was going to show this one as an example of a classic single concave. So this doesn't have the little double in the back. And this one I don't want it to have the release that I said the double has, or the tail release, because it's a narrow tail and it's going to be for really high speed situations.
Want to throw that straight on there? Yeah.
Yeah, the straight, as you can see, this one's kind of deeper concave than the other one, but it actually runs through the tail. You can see back here, it doesn't go flatter. It kind of runs through the tail.
Got to find the right camera angle.
Even, you see that?
Yeah.
So this one's just it's got a little deeper back here because the tail's narrower.
Gotcha.
So I compensated it. The tail pulls in more because it's a round pin, but to hold that in, I'm bringing the concave through the tail. And there's maybe just a slight little double, because this will be for small waves, but I did it pretty slight. You can just kind of feel it a little bit there. So.
And then maybe finishing up on just a little bit more rocker, or about the rocker.
Well, rockers, let's say the general theory or general rules of rocker is, say, the steeper, hollower waves you're going to ride, you want more rocker in the board. Smaller, flatter waves, slower waves, you want less rocker. So it's like you usually want to hold a board up this way to check out a rocker, so you pick up a board and hold it like this way. You know, and then you kind of look at the whole curve. And if you see a lot of curve, that's going to be more for.
So it sounds like a lot of beginners and intermediates need to really think about not having too much rocker.
It's better, yeah.
Because they're not going to be on powerful. They're going to be on more mellow waves.
See a flippy tail.
I feel like I said in the past, I feel like a lot of people want to model after the pros, right? So they have all these models that are designed for these professional surfers. So a lot of intermediate guys think that if they surf one of those boards, it's going to make them better.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to work the board right,
no, you got to be realistic. There's a lot of people that are buying boards, not being realistic, not thinking about their level, and they don't know better. You know? So it's good that you got to kind of be honest about your level of surfing and the kind of waves you're surfing, and then buy the board based on that. You know?
Yeah.
Like I said, if you're just surfing average beginner surf, you want to have a board that looks kind of generally flat. All boards have curve, but you don't want to see a lot of flip in the nose, the entry rocker too, because this part of the board right here is where the water comes on. So you actually want to look at this area, and this is kind of that happy medium I was talking about, where it's not too curvy and it's not too flat. but beginners need to have this area just a little bit flatter. Because you're going to create speed. You're going to make sections a lot quicker, and you don't want to see, if you hold it up like this, this board has a lot of tail rocker. It's got that kind of curve in the tail, and that's meant to go like in the pocket and the surf really tight in the pocket, and beginners aren't going to do that.
Right.
They just want to get that, you want to get down the line and make sections so you can start doing turns. So anything that can...
It'll hurt them, yeah, because if they don't know how to work the pocket and stay in the steep part of the wave, they're just going to feel slow.
Yeah.
And they're going to feel like they can't do anything.
It's going to be frustrating.
Super frustrating.
Yeah.
It's interesting because a lot of sports, better equipment means you'll perform better, whereas in surfing, a high performance equipment can actually make a beginner or intermediate surf worse.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to put the board where it's supposed to go.
They don't know any better either, but it's good to start learning. That's why these videos are helpful for you guys out there, because you know you can start learning how to check the concaves, check the rocker and those tail shapes. Like I'm saying, this wouldn't be the best tail shape for a beginner because it's narrow and it's meant for high speed situations. Really
tucked
high
in,
speed, yeah.
All right, well, let's call this video quit, and we'll do some more in the future. There's so many things we can do, right?
Yeah, and hopefully we're not getting too into detail and it's going over people's heads. Let's hope not.
All right, all right, guys. I hope you guys liked the video. We'll do more. Pura vida and aloha.